I welcome all the participants in this today's session, week 10, session 3rd. Let's talk about that we have already started discussing on people's participation or community participation, and we have left in between. So today's we are going to discuss in the same way, the same topic, that people's participation, and then about the PRA PLA technique. So who should be involved in participatory process? This is the question, right? So here the answer is of two, like target of change, who are the target of change, and agents of change. So these two things has to be keeping in mind whenever we have to plan for any kind of the participatory activity. So once the question is this, so the ideal answer here is that everyone who is affected by the proposed intervention, but that's seldom possible or even desirable to take their participation. You may be talking about the thousands of people, too many for an effective planning process. In reality, there should be a strong and effective representation for everyone involved, right? So these are maybe the community members, or these are the influential figures. So target of change for whom the projects and programs is being developed. So that is what the target of change. So they could be very specifically any youth for which we have to going there for their de-addiction program, or in general for the whole community. We have creating some kind of the campaigns for smoking prevention or prevention for the addiction habits. So this could be common for general masses. So this is what the target of change. It is at the micro level, meso level, at the macro level. So that is what the target of change. Next is about the this is what maybe it could be a community member, and it could be any influential figure. Agents of change, who actually are responsible for bringing the change into the community or through people's participation. So agents of change are the people who make the influences policy or public opinion. These include actual policy makers, but also encompasses people influential in the community. So that what the influential members of the community leaders and all. So they are very helpful in actually putting the things into action. So through their participation and taking the agents of change into loop of the program and policies for as in participation is so important, and then target of change. So their participation is again so important. So policy makers, so participation have to be taken from the agents of change as well as the target of change. So both participation is important. So agents of change could influence the policy making. Legal elected or appointed, it could be any legal elected or appointed official like Pradhan and all. State or federal elected or appointed officials who have influence in the community or over the issues in which the intervention is aimed. Maybe at the higher level you can take the help of or taking the loop of the whole change, any MP MLAs. Interested members of the community, whoever actually wanted to participate, you can take their participation. Clergy and the faith community, they are very influential many time, and we have witnessed that during the polio eradication program, how we have we took the participation of those religious leaders, that because things because as Rani Banerjee has already mentioned, that Indian masses is more taking the things more seriously when you go with some kind of the religious approach, putting some kind of the morality and religious quoting with those statements. So they take it more seriously, and they take it more things became more legitimized. So this is it's not a problematic thing. Once you're working with some community, you have to respect their culture, you have to respect their value system. So religion is one of the important value system of them. So next is taking the help of those clergies and those religious leaders is then that time is so important to maximize the people's participation. Natural leaders, those whom others respect and listen to. Some are the very natural leaders has been emerged in every community. Some chacha, some tau, some in every community there are some usually they are elderly people. So they have some kind of the influence into the community, and people actually do listen to them. Because of their some kind of their activeness, maybe their experiences. So they are usually being respected into the community. So taking them taking them as a change agent is so important. The media or others who have a public platform. So this is another important agents of change. So for the people's participation, if they see the things in the coming through the medias, so that impacted more. It media could be the print media or the social media or the general TV media, or it could be any pictures or movies, or it could be any local medias, or you could say that the local folk dances and theaters and through nukkad natas, you can also take them or take these kind of the strategies to bring some changes into the community. Community participation at what I mean, how they have been participated at the different levels. So these different level at the time of the problems identification, at the time of the planning process, at the time of the project implementation, at the time of the monitoring and evaluation. If their participation is happening at every level, so it could be a real sense of the bottom up approach, and so things became more viable and more productive. So community participation in problem identification, usually they have not in many programs their concerns has not been taken into consideration. Sometimes the concerns has been taken from some elected or selected member, maybe from the panchayats and all, but actual sense of the people's participation has not been there at the time of the problem identification. So as the Robert Chambers has mentioned, that ongoing involvement in decision making about activities is limiting, as they do not play a key role in such process. So if the committee would not participate at their max at their level, so what happened then, the things became not so much successful. Community participation in the planning process, so the community activity actually contribute to designing solution and strategies. It will be more cultural oriented, and it is more acceptable by them. So builds a sense of responsibility and ownership once they have developed some kind of the planning with any kind of problem, because once they're being involved in from the problem identification to planning to implementation, and so they definitely they see that this is happening in the whatever is happening and whatever the project is going on is their own baby, is their own so they feel connected with that programs and policies. So community participation in the planning process is that way so important, because it's actually enhance the sense of ownership and sense of responsibility from the community for their projects. Community participation in project implementation. So community members involved in carrying out the project activities strengthen local capacity and self-reliance, ensure community specific insights, and incorporate it into overall. So this community participation in project implementation is again so important, as we have already mentioned while we were talking about the planning process. Community participation in monitoring and evaluation, this what is about the tracking the progress and then measuring the outcomes and assess the impact of the overall project and program. It promotes transparency and accountability. When the committee members would participate in the process of evaluation, it actually gives the whole strength of the program. So things became more transparent. The committee would feel more develop a kind of connectivity with that programs and feel that everything is okay, no wastages, and they feel more confident and so more empowered, because they have been involved into that program and projects throughout. So whatever the, good or bad has happened with that programs and project, they take it as their own responsibility. So, so for that reason, community participation in the monitoring and evaluation is again so important to make it more, accountable. Things became more accountable. So, allow adjustment based on community feedback, and according to the community feedback, you can make some kind of adjustment in the projects and programs. So, you can do at even at the midterm evaluation. So, once midterm evaluation has been happened with the taking the feedback from the committee members, and then you get to know that where is the problem, you can actually adjust those problems before the things is going beyond your control. So even at the midterm evaluation you can do that. Community participation techniques. What are the different this community participation techniques has been there. So this is considered to be action planning cycle, where assessing needs and assets, agreeing on vision, generating ideas and plans for action, enabling action, and monitoring and evaluation. So at the every level, this is what called as an action planning cycle. In the action planning, you have to take the people's participation at every level, at the assessing needs and assets, as we have already discussed here, So, and then that is about the community participation problem identification, that is same, assessing needs and assess with the community, agreeing on vision, whatever the vision which is coming out from the community member. It's not that putting your vision on in front of them, rather you have to accept the vision which is coming out from there, so it will be more viable and culturally oriented. Then generating ideas and plans for action with them, with the community members. You can generate some kind of ideas and plan of action, and then enabling action. So then you have to make the things put into action. So that is what the enabling action enables the community members to make it more, make things put in action. Then monitoring and evaluation. So as we have discussed here, that how we have to take the community participation and monitoring and evaluation as an important aspect. So this is what are considered to be action planning cycle. Next is about the practice elements. So, know the community's constituents and capabilities. So, practice elements means what things you have to understand, right, regarding the community to make the things more successful, to make the program more participatory. So, know the community, its constituents and its capabilities is important. So, on the basis of that, on the basis of understanding of the community, you can actually in a position to understand at what level you can take the participation of the community, or what kind of the gaps or issues and challenges would come into the whole programs. Established position and strategies that guide interaction with constituents. That constituents is about the community, right? So, established position and strategies. You have to develop the overall, after understanding the whole community, their power structure, their dynamic, then you have to develop the kind of strategies that help you to maintain a kind of connection with the community. Next is build and sustain formal and informal networks to maintain relationship, communicate message and leverage resources. Third level is about building a sustained formal and informal networks. It could be formal, and it has to be always be that you have to develop some kind of the formal network as well as some informal network. Maybe the formal networks with some formal agencies, with some government sub agencies, some leaders, elected leaders, or some informal networks like the kind of the capital, human capital, social capital available in the community. So through all these formal informal networks, and to maintain the relationship through, after all this networking and maintaining relationship with the different stakeholders through formal and informal modes, you actually be able to communicate your message and actually be capable and able to use the resources available, which may not be available in the community or maybe available some other community. You can hold it and you can use those. Then mobilize communities for decision making and social action. Now the next step is about when you have developed the networking, when you have developed the strategies, then when you have understand the whole community, now you are able to mobilize the community for decision making and social action. So this is what as the Hatcher has talked about the different practice elements that we have to go with. Way to increase social and community participation, that is through assessment and understanding, through some kind of a goal setting. This is what the factors what we have discussed about, that how we have to enhance the level of people's participation. So this is also talking about a way to increase the social and community participation through assessment and understanding of the community. Then about the goal setting, then strategy development, the kind of the strategy which you needed, knowledge and awareness, then knowledge and awareness of the programs for which you are working with, so that keeping the community informed about those programs, and then implementation, coming to the implement part. Then feedback and adaptation is important. Feedback and adaptation, that you have to understand what is the loophole into the whole process, and then you have to work on those. Then evaluate, the final evaluation is would be their documentation, reporting, so important, making things more accountable and making things more impartial for the community, and so people will develop a kind of confidence. And this also give you the confidence that if you keep everything in writing, that you have all the assurance that whatever the resources you have been used, where it has been used, how much the things you make more successful. So what are the gaps that you need to fulfill? So through the proper documentation and reporting, you could be easily evaluate the thing. Continuous improvement. So you are working with a community who's so much the community is so dynamic, right? And even the programs and policies also need some kind of the adjustment and readjustment as per the different communities. So you have to continuously improve into your skills and continuously improve into the programs and policies to make it more acceptable by the different sets of the community. Sustainability, this is also important, that you have, whenever you talk about the people's participation, you are actually talking about the sustainable programs or sustainable approach. Adaptability, you have to be good enough to adapt the different cultural things, or maybe the different kinds of the loopholes, challenges which comes in the wake of overall activities which you are actually working for the community. Next, working for the community. um, Now, coming to the next topic, that is about the PRA technique, that is participatory rural appraisal and participatory learning in action. I would like to start, and I love to start this every time, this PRA technique with this Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu's statement, that is about the go to the people, talk to them, live with them, and love them. Start with what they know, build with what they have. And with the best leaders, when the work is done, the task accomplished, the people will say, we have done this ourselves. See how beautiful lines are. I mean, years back, decades back, centuries back, this philosophy has actually enlightened us. And even though we are not actually taking this as so much in practically in action, so this particular statement is or this whole phrase of Lao Tzu is so motivating, that once that you go with the community, work with them, and then once that they do their work by themselves, they will develop the kind of the confidence that we have done this by ourselves. So, and this is what the final highest level of empowerment. So whenever you go for the community for the development work, what is the first thing that you do? Try to get as much as information about the community as possible from the community members, and then what are the methods that you are actually could employ to get these information. This is another question. Probably you would use observation, interview, group discussions, or any method that you find suitable to actually get maximum information from the community, right? But when you have to go into the community and work for the people, from that community, you would like to have maximum participation from the people themselves in the program planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. This will ensure that people get what they want. They get a feeling that it is, their own program, and that is the development is more sustainable. So these are certain questions that what are the community's problem, what are the community's issues, to whom you have to interact with, what are the resources available in the community. So these are the some questions which has always been there before entering into the community. And when you go into the community, you can go with some kind of the traditional tools, that is observation and all, but it is always in a present day. Once we talk about the bottom up approach, so we are more concerned for the PRA techniques, or the PRA or PLA technique, that is actually helpful in it's also research methodology, helping you out, and it's also an approach which actually maximize the people's participation. So as it is a research methodology, so it help in getting a lot of the information of the community through people's participation. That is what the philosophy of PRA technique. Let's talk about this PRA technique. What is this PRA technique? So understanding the community in the prerequisite for, it is very important and prerequisite for starting any developmental welfare program. So, and through their community participation, it became more, sustainable. So before 1970s, survey was the most commonly used method to understand the community, situation and condition in its limitation. But new approach has been adopted, as I have already told you, after 1970s or 80s, which is the PRA technique, right? So before coming to the PRA technique, this is also important that we have to understand, because PRA techniques overall has been the main propounder of this, the Robert Chambers. So who is Robert Chambers, that we will discuss later on. So but Robert Chambers has given the PRA technique, but his whole idea has coming out from this whole community deprivation trap philosophy, which has been given by the Robert Chambers. He actually this community deprivation trap adapted by Robert Chambers in the year 1986 described the interconnected factors that perpetuate poverty and deprivation in the community. So means once the someone is poor, so maybe he is isolated, not been connected to the any kind of the programs and policies, or to the having not strong connectivity with the stakeholders. And so when someone is that way isolated, is feelings of the powerlessness. If someone is feeling powerless, so that way he is isolated. If that way he is isolated, is the more chances of their poverty is been there, and he will be more in a position to be more vulnerable, and so to the weak, physical weakness would be there. So it is essential therefore that development projects and strategies should be built upon indigenous knowledge system and participation of the local people in problem identification, implementation and monitoring and evaluation, so that no one can be left out in this whole process of development, because we have to break this isolation, we have to break this powerlessness through people's participation. Once we break at any points, it is going to break the other aspect, right? So this is very important, as to understand this whole deprivation trap, that if the problem is in the vicious circle, and this interconnected factors that actually perpetuate the overall kind of the poverty and the vulnerability of the community. These factors form a cycle that traps the individuals and communities in general, making it difficult for to escape from these trap, right? So Chambers identified these dimensions that actually put the community or the individuals into the trap. So these are the powerlessness, vulnerability, physical weakness, poverty, isolation, and so on and so forth. So to escape these deprivation trap, Chambers emphasize participatory approach. That's why we have discussed so much about the participation, where communities are empowered to identify problem and solutions. So see, we have talked a lot about the community. We have discussed about the community work, community development, so community organization, social action. So this we have seen that there are, and all together in all the discussion, we have discussed about the some deprived communities, some vulnerable communities whose voice has not been heard. So and they are in some kind of the vicious circle, and this vicious circle has been so beautifully defined by this deprivation trap by Chambers, that how the things is being so much in the vicious circle. So we have to actually hit it to one subsection or subset of this deprivation trap or deprivation system aspect. So once any subsystem of this deprivation trap would be, will be affected or will be influenced, it is going to, it's a trickling down effect. So it is going to affect to the next and the rest of the aspect. So once we actually hit to and work for the poverty elevation program, we are actually providing them and making them less vulnerable. And through people's participation, they will develop some kind of the strength. So isolation will be reduced. And so so that way every interconnected aspect of this whole deprivation trap is going to be resolved. So these are the 4 points which the Chambers has suggested, and the prime important he is talking about the participatory approach, through which we actually break this overall this deprivation trap. So enhancing access to basic services and resources, through this we can reduce the vulnerability of the community, and that could be possible through people's awareness and people's participation. Then promoting inclusive decision making process. That is what the promoting inclusive decision making process, that we have to give in a space for the community members to they do participate in every kind of the decision making. Building local capacity and resilience. So this is another suggestion by the Robert Chambers, that through people's participation we build local capacity and resilience. That is, once they develop the kind of the capacity, they will actually hit this whole deprivation trap. Creating sustainable livelihood opportunities, that hits the overall the poverty aspect. Once the poverty aspect would be hit, it is again it's a trickling down. It's a major philosophy and assumptions that someone is if economically developed, so it is going to affect to the rest of it. Is true, but not that so much true, because we have seen that after even the economic growth, economic development, the gap between haves and have not, rich and poor, has been increased. So that doesn't actually impacted to the larger masses. If the country's GDP has been high, if the country is earning, but even it is not going to impacted the local masses. So until they do not participate, they do not come forward and they do talk about their own issues, so it is not going to be easily resolved. But overall, creating sustainable livelihood opportunities is always giving the kind of the confidence among the community member, and it hits it's overall the deprivation trap. So this framework actually remains relevant in development planning, highlighting the need for holistic interventions to tackle poverty and deprivation. So going with some kind of the holistic approach is important to break this deprivation trap. So with this, I just stop today's lecture. I hope you understand the importance of people's participation, and then the very important tools and techniques which we are going to discuss, that I have already started today about the PRA PLA technique. In the coming sessions, we are, in detail, we are going to discuss about the PRA PLA technique and its respective tools that you need to understand, and you have developed the skills so that you will be able to, take into, you will be able to take the people's participation at the maximum level, at the maximum, at the highest level of their participation, and the things became more accountable, things became more clear once the committee would participate, and giving the, you will be able to get the overall resources, get the information about the committee, of their, historical aspect, their resources aspect, their overall physical, geographical, social aspects, their need assessment. So once you will do all this through the participation, with the people's participation, it will be a more viable and more successful project you will be able to, draft, and you will be intervened in. Thank you so much.